said I was going to American politics after that last story, but not too much. I didn't get the chance to do the story for this one last week, so I'm going to do it now for this week. Gilets jaunes. This is the Yellow Vest movement in France. This has been going on for 11 weeks. This group, or this self-organizing body of human beings that were not necessarily collected to any political group, weren't collected to unions, people across the political spectrum coming out saying, no, we're done, enough. We're not going to support a system that is not representing us and is not working for our interests. And we're not going to pretend that it is. You have an agenda that is working for one class in the society against not the other, at the very least ignoring the fact that the other even exists. They've been able to get gains for this, seeing as 70% of the population agrees with their position that there's a problem with the way French society is being run. They continue. All of this started over a fuel tax, but it quickly evolved to attacks on the system itself. Meaning, I've made this argument here in the United States. If how we're arranged, how we democratically decide to organize ourselves, meaning us being in a capitalistic system is not an act of God, that's an act of policy. We choose how we're organized. And if we, as a collective body, decide that, hey, if we are organized in a way where 95% of the wealth flows to the top 1%, maybe we shouldn't be organized in that way. Maybe it's the system itself that is organized in a particular fashion that is driving a certain outcome. You can change the system to which you're in. Again, this is not an act of God, this is an act of policy. I'm not saying it's easy, I'm just saying it is possible to do. In this particular case, in this very specific case, for France, the attacks have been made on the system itself. It quickly evolved from just this thing of, this basic fuel tax to being the attacks on the system itself that would allow such a thing to take place, where the president would try to essentially use the poor classes to pay for the inequities in the higher classes. Especially with, it's like trying to solve environmental crisis on the backs of the poor. This was a fail, and this was called to account as such. I want to show some videos for this. I've said that they're doing God's work, and I've said that they're doing God's work because I believe they're doing God's work. I think what is taking place is vital. This uprising of people who are finally coming to their senses, waking up, if you want to call it that, and saying, we're done. This system is not working for our interests, and we want to change the way we've organized this system. They're doing it in France. We seem to be somewhat apathetic in the States, or at the very least dormant. That's it. I kind of want to show two videos from this. We were talking about Venezuela and the protests against the Maduro government in Venezuela. We often miss the fact that there were protests for the Maduro government. But in this case, we have a direct attack on the order of France itself. I mean, some of these guys are calling for Macron's head. Now, there's been a splintering in the group, as some elements are more radical than others. And there's this thing of, I guess, what are we and what are we trying to accomplish and what do we do next and that type of stuff. And people start to go their separate ways. But there's still 69,000 people that came to those rallies. And even if they do splinter, for the most part, their core ideas are fundamentally the same and would work in tandem with one another in order to accomplish those fundamental goals. Take a look at this video. I kind of want to give an impression of what is taking place in France. Let's do dual screen and kill them.
Je vais m'éloigner. Non, non, je vais avec toi là.
The horns are freaking my dog up. The dog is like waking up, freaking out, barking. This is utter chaos. Let's play a little bit more. It's pandemonium. The police have been using tear gas, water cannons, and flashballs. The flashball is the thing I want to talk about because flashballs have been injuring people. I mean, granted, supposedly non-fatal or less lethal, I guess, technologies. But let's be clear, it does cause injuries, especially when it's hitting people in certain areas, particularly the head. And they've been using it, hitting people in the head. Let's keep going. You get the point. The majority of the protests were peaceful, and whether they were peaceful or not, the cops have been using rather rough tactics, as you've seen there, in order to suppress or put down these groups. The other video I want to show is an injury that's taken place using these flashball guns. And, you know, they're acting as if these things, I guess they call them less lethal, but I kind of want to show them in action. And unfortunately, this guy's taking a bad end for you to see how these things function in practice, but I apologize.
Attention les gars. Bouge pas, reste là. Non, non, attention.
That last image is a haunting image. That's not a movie. Like, after seeing what you were saying before with the flashbang, I mean, with the smoke cannons, the water cannons, and all these things the police were using to suppress the crowd, there's a haunting image at the end. Let me flip this for a moment, where the people are standing over the guy that gets hit with a flashball, and they're looking down on him. It's this almost weird mimicking thing of you being dead. I mean, you're looking at the perspective through the camera. And from the people who are looking at you, it makes it look as if you yourself are laying on the ground looking up with people looking down on you. It's a weird, bizarre effect. I don't think they necessarily staged this. So they, you know, this supposedly took place where somebody's walking around with a camera and gets hit by one of these things. That is a haunting image. That is an extraordinarily haunting image. This article, for the most part, or this video, the only point in this video is to kind of point to these people are out there, and they were so moved by what was taking place in their country that they got out and they did something about it and pushed and agitated and bitched and moaned and put their bodies on the line and put their own suffering to some degree on the line to come out week after week after week after week. The actions of the government have been used to, let's say, quell this, but quell this in a way of trying to drag it out. I mean, these movements, yes, they're strong when they're doing something like this, but there's only so long that they can keep up a certain degree of fire, and you can see it in the numbers that are slowly declining, even though they're continually coming out. But there's something that drives the human being to this degree. There's a certain level of misery that the person looks at, cognitively saying, I am a better person than this. Meaning, what I consider myself as a human being requires certain things for me to be a human being. And if the society to which I'm interacting with is not assisting me in getting those things, and if making those things worse, then why am I participating in this social contract? In which case, these people are pushed to this degree of agitation. I love it. I'm sorry, I love it. And keep in mind, there's an interesting point here. The individual themselves have to look at themselves in a particular way to say, I am better than this. And we, as a society, should be better than this. They're not willing to accept but so much. Personally, I think they're doing God's work. And if it spreads to other areas of the European Union, watch out. Watch out. So I'll end this here. I'm not going to keep this one long. It's almost 4 in the morning. Yes, 4 in the morning here. So I'm going to try to get a little bit of rest before I have to get up in the day. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all.